what's up? Welcome back. I think we got it figured out now. Let's do a test run. Just throw that video up real quick. Let's just test it for 2 seconds.
South Korea was among the quickest in the world to set up
Play
a system
that.
of coronavirus tests, including at these
Transition
drive-through
that
testing
over.
centers.
We got audio. We
Now,
good with that?
South Korea is helping other countries, including the United States, which has struggled to make
All right,
tests
cool.
widely available.
All right. You
President
can bring me
Moon
back to
Jae-in
main. Bring me back on main. Sweet. All right, so welcome back. We'll just do this all over again, like we didn't get into it the first time. So, yeah, welcome back to another episode of the DA Perspective. Want to start off by just asking how everyone's doing. I hope everyone's in good spirits. Excuse me, considering the everything that's going on right now. So I know that's kind of a lot to ask of people to be in good spirits now, but I think the best thing you can do is in the darkest times is to look for the most light or to start a fire, right? Create some light. So hopefully you're all doing okay. Your friends and family are okay. And we'll be out of this here pretty soon. Also wanted to send a very special thank you to all the healthcare workers out there. You all are incredibly important. You're doing the bulk of the work right now to make sure that it doesn't get worse. So we really applaud you for that and really appreciate your efforts, your time, your dedication, and your selflessness during this time. So how are we looking over here? Good? All right, so getting right into it, I want to talk about some response issues. So I know that there's been much debate about how this whole crisis has been handled from the beginning. So I wanted to show a video from South Korea because South Korea is going to be sending us some COVID testing supplies or something like that. And 1 second, real quick. Yeah. So let's take a look at a video that's coming out of South Korea. And I want you to take a notice. I want you to take note of the way that they're testing everyone. The kind of drive-through testing, the way that the people are clothed that are doing the testing, like the protective equipment. So let's go ahead and cue that up. Let's check that out.
South Korea was among the quickest in the world to set up a system of coronavirus tests, including at these drive-through testing centers. Now, South Korea is helping other countries, including the United States, which has struggled to make tests widely available. President Moon Jae-in said South Korea will provide the U.S. as many coronavirus test kits as possible, as long as it has enough to continue testing its own people. It's a role reversal for a 70-year-old alliance. South Korea now helping protect Americans in the U.S. mainland.
Been a very busy day.
But hours after asking for help, Trump insisted U.S. coronavirus tests are better and were made available faster than South Korean ones.
We kept hearing about South Korea. They had a very tough time at the beginning, if you remember. In 8 days, we're doing more testing than they've done in 8 weeks.
The U.S.-South Korea alliance has been strained under Trump. In fact, even as he asks for South Korea's coronavirus help, he's demanding that South Korea pay billions more for the cost of the U.S. military presence here.
That fact is not lost on this group of South Koreans who work at U.S. military bases. They are among 4,000 Koreans who will be furloughed next week when money runs out to pay them. The head of the Korean Workers' Labor Union shaved his head in protest.
This is how we make a living.
Yeah, so as you can see, they have like a flow in place, right? Like a pretty robust structure. Something not even close to what we have, which is unfortunate. Yeah, so there was a lot of things that we could have done differently. And we're still struggling to try to get this aid package pushed out to people. The unemployment numbers went up. It was 3 million people filed. That was the most ever. So just kind of shows the stubbornness of the administration that we currently have. Yeah. So I wanted to show another video, and in this one's kind of this one's a little ironic. So everyone's talking about what's his name, Dr. Fauci, I think his name is. He's the head of the National Disease Center, National Health Center, something like that. They'll say his title here too. But this is a PBS episode that aired, I don't know, maybe 9 months ago, something like that. And I think you'll see a familiar face. And it's very, very ironic what they're talking about in this episode. So go ahead and cue that one up. That's the why another
Tonight,
flu.
we began a special series about the threat from influenza. Every year, the seasonal flu emerges and kills tens of thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands globally. But there's an even graver concern. Public health officials fear the emergence of a new, previously unknown flu virus that could be far more lethal and become a pandemic by spreading across the world. As William Brangham reports, it's happened before.
The heart and
the heart and my heartbeat, yeah, because of course I didn't have a beating heart for a little bit.
6 years ago, Autumn Redinger started feeling sick, but she was a 33-year-old mom, really healthy, and so she didn't think much of it.
It was 2 days after Christmas, and I just kind of felt a little junky, a little cough here and there, but nothing horrible. I had texted my fiance, and it was a
Diagnosed her with the flu.
my lungs started to feel on fire.
Meaning when you would breathe in, it would burn?
Breathe in, breathe out, it burned.
The flu was attacking her lungs and filling them with fluid. She was then medevaced to University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, where she was eventually put under the care of Dr. Holt Murray.
The lungs become very boggy, they fill with water, and you're not able to move oxygen from the outside world into your bloodstream.
You can't breathe.
You
really.
can't breathe, yeah.
It kept getting worse. Her lungs were failing. She was put on a ventilator, but even that couldn't get enough oxygen into her.
It was a nurse who slipped up and made a comment about me dying. And I was just like, what? Oh yeah, you died like twice.
Seasonal flu that we've had in memory, about 80,000 deaths and almost 1 million hospitalizations. You do that every year for 20, 30, 40 years.
That's a huge
toll. At the
toll.
end of that time, that's a huge toll in illness and in deaths.
Fauci is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the National Institutes of Health. He says while many take the so-called seasonal flu for granted, it still kills tens of thousands in the U.S. every year.
So this is the influenza virus. This is the inner core of the influenza virus.
But the seasonal flu isn't really what Fauci loses sleep over. It's the concern that a new flu strain emerges, a virus we've never seen before and have no protections against, like what happened in 1918.
In 1918, we were swimming in the dark, as it were.
That year, a new virus emerged, triggering one of the worst pandemics in human history. Often called the Spanish flu, this virus killed at least 50 million people worldwide and reached almost every nation on Earth. About 670.
Yeah, so kind of crazy, right? So this is the guy who, during this whole coronavirus daily update from the president, which actually it has been up until the coronavirus daily briefings started, maybe a week and a half ago, we hadn't had a White House press briefing in over a whole year. Our administration, which normally every administration, they do daily White House press briefings. Well, because, Trump, fake news and the media and all that stuff, they hadn't had those meetings for quite some time. I believe it was when Sarah Huckabee Sanders was still the she was a press secretary. That was the last time we had one of those meetings. So now they want to come out every day and talk about how well they're handling the situation, which, again, they claim that they had no foresight. They didn't know what was going on. They had no, knowledge of anything. And here's this guy, Fauci, Dr. Fauci, literally saying months ago, almost a whole year ago, the next thing that's going to happen that's going to be hard for us to handle is going to be a pandemic. Some flu strain literally just happened. So, yeah, it's crazy, right? All right, so let's, so how do we fix this now, right? So we're here now. Everyone is affected, whether you're on the top of the food chain or not. So our government has come up with a stimulus package that is supposed to help us get through this tumultuous time. So let's play another clip. This one's going to kind of go over the cliff notes of it. I don't remember, CBS in the Morning or something made this clip, so this is going to give us an idea of what we can expect.
Wall Street ended another tumultuous week with another big loss on Friday. The Dow fell more than 900 points, but the week also saw the biggest one-day point gain in history, following word that a $2 trillion economic relief package would pass Congress. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES, was signed into law by President Trump on Friday. Joining us to talk about what is in the package and how it may affect you is CBS News senior business analyst Jill Schlesinger. Jill, let's start right there. How is this bill going to affect Americans? What are the big takeaways?
I think the big takeaways is that we really are seeing a lifeline come from Washington, D.C. We've got three aspects, big aspects of the plan, and we think about individuals first. Well, you mentioned earlier in the show those checks, $1,200 checks to anyone who makes less than $75,000. That amount does phase lower as you approach $99,000. Just know that if you make less than $99,000 as a household, your adjusted gross income, you're going to get a check. There's also another $500 per child. Very helpful. Again, have to be part of that income. But for individuals, the biggest aspect to me is the expanding of the unemployment benefits. So the government is tacking on 13 weeks to whatever the maximum is in your state, and also providing a check of $600 a week on top of whatever your state unemployment benefit is. So that's for the individuals. There's relief for small businesses and corporations. I think the small business part is really important. There are loans that are available to cover your payroll, your rent, your utilities, and those loans from the SBA through the Small Business Administration would be forgiven as long as you have the same amount of money going out towards payroll that you for the next 8 weeks that you did in the prior run-up to the virus.
Jill, when do people get these checks and how?
Well, you know, it's going to be really interesting. From the checks, the direct payments, if you have a record on file with the government of a direct deposit, so maybe you're a Social Security recipient, maybe you filed your taxes electronically, that's going to be the way you get your money. It'll be a few weeks. But if for some reason you still get paper checks, this could take up to 2, 3, some people think even 4 months, simply because the government doesn't have the facility to print checks, and this could hold you up. Unemployment benefits should be coming pretty quickly after you apply. State systems got clogged up, but we're hearing 2 to 3 weeks is when the unemployment benefits should be received.
Pause. Let's get out of there here. So here's the issue with that, right? If I owe you money right now, I can pull out my phone. I can send you money right now, right? They're talking about weeks to get people the stimulus check. And don't get me wrong, I understand the whole, we can't, I mean, the government doesn't print checks, like they're not a printing company. But we've already done this once before. It's not like we're just, oh man, how do we send checks to everyone? Again, I talked about this last week when we got the was it Obama or Bush? I can't remember. Someone sent us checks already, right? I think it was Bush sent us a stimulus check. They've done it already once. So acting like, you know, this whole delay, this taking forever, like people need help now. People need assistance right now. And you're dragging your feet because you want to ensure that you take care of the real people you want to take care of, which is the banks, the large corporations, and, you know, your fancy donor friends. Case in point, as you heard her say, she said that the unemployment benefit is going to be raise to an additional $600 on top of whatever you're getting locally from your state, right? So I have a clip. Of 4 congresspersons who decided at the last minute to threaten holding up the bill because what they refer to as a drafting error. They said we hope this is the drafting error and that we can't incentivize people to stay on unemployment. So I want you to listen to how they talk about the aid that is going to be given to you,
our nation,
the regular person, the normal person on the street, not the CEO, not the, incredibly wealthy executive or whatever. Just listen to how they talk about how you on unemployment should be paid.
Our nation is built on the dignity of work. What this bill does without fixing it is it simply says you can earn more money by being on unemployment than you can while working. That is an incentive that is perverse. We cannot have intended to encourage people not to work and make more money than to go back to work and receive your normal pay.
Under this bill, the $600 payment on top of state benefits actually allows people to have their income almost doubled in certain circumstances. And I want to help people. I want to make sure that if you lose your job, that we cover your wages. But under this bill, you get $23.15 an hour based on a 40-hour work week not to work.
This is a debate about whether or not we're going to let a poorly drafted bill knock this nation still harder in the coming months by unintentionally increasing unemployment. That's what this debate is about. So we want to do something really simple. We want to fix what's broken here by saying that unemployment insurance benefits should be capped at 100% of the pay you had before you were unemployed. This isn't just about people who've already been made unemployed. This is about people who are going to be made unemployed in the coming weeks. All this amendment says that we're voting on in a few minutes is that we should cap the unemployment benefits at 100% of the wages you were just receiving while working.
Under this bill as it's written now, the government will pay many Americans more to be on government assistance than they would make if they were working at their regular jobs. I support expanding the unemployment insurance program. It's the best and quickest way to get money to people that need it most. But we should not create a system where unemployment insurance benefits are higher than a salary. We cannot pay people more to not work than to work.
Higher than a salary. So first of all, most of the people that really, really need that assistance, they don't get salaries. That's why they need it in the first place. See, people that have salaries, for the most part, they're still getting paid right now. And they have those types of, a lot of them work in career fields where they can work from home, right? This is what we're learning right now, that telecommuting's, not as bad as everyone thought it was going to be. But yeah, so to talk about the people that need this the most, and they used, if you watch their little press conference outside of this, so this was them on the floor before they did this earlier in the day, they had done kind of a little press conference where all 4 of them were on a stage together, socially distanced, of course. And they basically were saying, like what they said here, we can't incentivize people to stay on unemployment, as if those 4 months were going to be enough for people to just, decide this was their new life. Like, seriously, like, whoever forbid those people making a little bit extra than they normally would have. And again, they used South Carolina as an example. And the example they used was that someone in South Carolina who makes $600 a week, which, first of all, can we talk about how $600 a week is probably not the most robust living wage. So someone making $600 a week before the pandemic loses their job. Now during the pandemic, they go to collect unemployment insurance that they've been paying into, that we've all been paying into to help each other out and ourselves when we need it. So they go in and they're eligible to get half of what they were making. So now they're eligible to get $300 a week from the state. The federal additional unemployment insurance benefit kicks in on top of that $300 at $600. So now this person who was making $600 a week on unemployment is now making $900 a week. And this, to these people, is just the end of the line. This is a non-starter. We can't have poor people make a little bit extra money for 4 whole months of their life. We're talking about maybe $1,200 per person in that specific scenario in South Carolina. $1,200. Sorry. Yeah, $1,200. 4 times 3. $300 a month for 4 months. They were willing to hold up the entire aid package because poor people were getting too much free money. So, of course, there was opposition to what they were saying. And to be honest, they already knew that it wasn't going to pass. I think a concession was made to where they were allowed to put that argument in an amendment to the bill that was being proposed. The amendment ultimately failed, and then the bill passed, which we all know. But I want you to play. Let's play the Bernie mock video. So this is Bernie on the floor late last night, basically saying what I just said about how offensive it would be for poor people on government assistance to get a little bit more than they were already making.
And now I find that some of my Republican colleagues are very distressed. They're very upset that somebody who's making $10, $12 an hour might end up with a paycheck for 4 months more than they received last week. Oh my God, the universe is collapsing. Imagine that. Somebody who's making $12 an hour, now like the rest of us, faces an unprecedented economic crisis with the $600 on top of their regular unemployment check, might be making a few bucks more for 4 months. Oh my word, will the universe survive? How absurd and wrong is that? What kind of value system is that? Meanwhile, these very same folks had no problem a couple of years ago voting for $1 trillion in tax breaks for billionaires and large profitable corporations. Not a problem. But when it comes to low-income workers in the midst of a terrible crisis, maybe some of them earning or having more money than they previously made, oh my word, we got to strip that out. Got to tell those poor people that no matter what. And by the way, when the McConnell bill first came up, unbelievably, and I know many Republicans objected to this, they were saying that, well, we want to give whatever it was, $1,000 or $1,200, but poor people should get less. You see, because poor people are down here, they don't deserve, they don't eat, they don't pay rent, they don't go to the doctor, they're somehow inferior because they're poor, we're going to give them less. Well, that was addressed. Now everybody is going to get the $1,200. But some of my Republican friends still have not given up on the need to punish the poor and working people. You haven't raised the minimum wage in 10 years. Minimum wage should be at least $15 an hour. You haven't done that. You've cut program after program after program, and now, horror of horrors, for 4 months, workers might be earning a few bucks more than they otherwise went.
Yeah, so it's crazy. And I'm about to play a video that shows the very stark contrast
oh my God,
in the way that
the
they're
universe
speaking about us, normal people. as opposed to large corporations. So first of all, this should have been two separate bills. There should not have been an aid package for the working person tied to the aid package for the corporations and the banks and whoever else that wasn't an actual human, a citizen, a person who paid taxes as a human. There should have been a separate bill here, and then there should have been a separate bill here. So if a tough vote was had, because here you want to put demands on giving money, and I don't mean to people, I mean to corporations, to businesses, and even to banks. Again, see, the difference between the bailout in 2008 was when we gave money, like TARP, for instance, when we gave that money, we took a piece of what we were giving the money to. We as the government owned a piece of that until it was paid off, and then we give it back. There's no check on the money that we're handing out now to the corporations, the bailout money. There's no nationalization of any part of that company. There's no oversight that has been arranged like there was before. There's none of that. Literally this time, it's just, here's your money, airlines. Here's your money, banks, because you're going to come for it. They've already said that the Fed can print unlimited money. We're at rock bottom interest rates now. So we said, you, American worker, you can't have $300 extra that you didn't normally work for previously. But you know what we're going to do for you, because we know you're in a tough time? We're going to make it easier for you to borrow money that you're going to have to pay back in full with interest, with probably a ridiculous interest rate on top of it as well. And the way that we're going to facilitate that for you, normal Joe P. citizen, is we're going to give it to the banks at a rock bottom rate, essentially free. And then they get to turn around and lend you your money at a rate of, like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 17, 22%, whatever they figure out they're going to get you for. That, don't get me wrong, you ultimately are going to sign for, and I wish that you didn't. But I understand that every example is circumstantial. So I understand that sometimes you need it, and you're willing to sign. I get it. But it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be what is it? It's socialism for corporations and rugged individualism for the rest of us. I think that's what we've really, really learned over the past 4 years. Whenever industry comes calling, look at the airlines. Airlines like, hey, we need $50 billion. Coronavirus, it's putting us out of business. Dare I say we nationalize the airlines? Dare I say that? Oh my God! Oh, communism! Really? The federal government does everything else for aviation. The airports. Who runs the airports? Who runs air traffic controllers? Who takes care of all that? That's all not the airlines. Literally, the airlines pay for the planes and the staff on the planes. That's it. Everything else goes to the government. So why not already take that on too? So that next time that this happens, there's at least one airline that doesn't need to come crawling back for money. And you know what? It'd be different if you came and you asked us for money, but you didn't treat us like shit previously. So like when we ask for like a passenger's bill of rights and we say, hey, we don't want to be stuck on the tarmac for 4 hours when you can't get your shit together. They're like, nah, you know what? You don't have the rights that we big corporations have. We get to say that we live in a free market system, but as soon as my big old corporation needs a bailout, I'm just gonna come ask for it, and I'm gonna get it. But when you need a bailout, you're gonna have to beg for it and hope that you get it. So yeah, so let's go into to that video about the Fed with the unlimited money. Yeah, that one.
Monday, the Fed dropped interest rates nearly to zero. Then, every day last week, it announced emergency lending programs. It pledged to spend at least $700 billion supporting mortgages, banks, money market mutual funds, corporate bonds, and lending to central banks of other countries, because the dollar is the currency of world trade.
We are being very aggressive, and I think our chairman, Jay Powell, has learned from the experience of 2008. We're moving much faster than we moved in 2008. We're being more aggressive. Is there more we can do? Yes. Is there more we may end up doing? Yes. But I think we're being very aggressive, and I think that's the right thing.
Can you characterize everything that the Fed has done this past week as essentially flooding the system with money?
Yes, exactly.
And there's no...
Go back to me. Is my mic on here? It is, right? Flooding the market with money. But for you, no. Swift and aggressive for you, no. For the corporations, for the banks. Go ahead.
No end to your ability to do that.
There is no end to our ability to do that.
What did we learn from 2008 when you were in the Treasury Department, and how is that being applied today?
There are two big mistakes when I look back at 2008 that we made that I think are relevant today. Number one, we were always too slow and too timid in responding to the crisis. The reason is we didn't know how bad it was going to get, and we didn't want to overreact. And it turned out it got really, really bad, and the right answer should have been overreacting to try to avoid the devastating recession that we ended up happening. So today, whether it's healthcare policymakers, fiscal policymakers, which means Congress, or the Federal Reserve, we should all be erring on the side of overreacting to try to avoid the worst economic outcome.
Pause it. So sending everyone only $1,200, that's doing it right now, right? Like that's overreacting and taking it to the extreme. Having a separate bill that fast tracks the economic resources that American families need while they're out of work, that didn't happen. That was the answer. That's quickly, that's aggressively, that's doing whatever it takes. Unlimited resources. But we don't have that, right? We can't do that for us, but we can do it for corporations and banks, right?
And number two, in 2008, we tried to be very targeted in helping homeowners, only helping homeowners who needed a little bit of help, because a lot of Americans were angry at the thought of their neighbor getting a bailout for being irresponsible, or so they thought. So we tried to target our programs. It ended up we didn't help very many people. We would have been much better off if we had been much more generous in our support for homeowners, deserving and not deserving. We would have had a less serious crisis. So my advice to Congress, as they're designing their programs to help workers and help small businesses, err on being generous.
This past
Err on being generous. Do you feel like generosity is on its way? You feel like when you get that fat $1,200 check, that fat one-time $1,200 check, do you feel like that you're gonna sleep really good at night and just everything's gonna be fine? Probably not, right? All right, so can we get Jeff on the line? Get him all prepped up. Sorry, I forgot to ask you about that earlier. So let's get Jeff on the line. So I got two buddies of mine that are going to join us today. I'm going to start with Jeff. He is a pretty good friend of mine. We've worked together previously. And that's cool. So, 1 second. So yeah, while we get him on the line, tell you a little bit about him. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, I don't have the thing for that either. So we'll get him on there. 1 second. Just wait. Turn it off. I have to tell him he's on his way. So basically, Jeff, he hit me up like about a day or so ago, talking about the infection rate of COVID. And so he is a data scientist. I'm sorry, a data engineer. He's a data engineer for a digital mapping company. And he's been analyzing the spatial statistics for COVID-19 and modeling the rate of spread for the CDC and public health organizations all across the country. Is he on the line right here? Is he?
Hey, can you
Yeah,
guys
I
hear
can
me?
hear you.
Hey, Derek, thanks for having
Yeah,
me
man.
on.
Good to see you. So yeah, I was just giving a brief introduction about you. If you want, go ahead, reintroduce yourself. Tell us why you have some valuable things to say.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jeff Pearson. I work for a major data company here in the United States. I'm specifically out here in Denver, Colorado, and I look at modeling the spread of the COVID-19 virus spatially, right? So I'm looking at not only sort of who is infected, but where they are, how fast it's spreading, and sort of where it's sort of going to, right? So I'm looking at all that data and making maps for it essentially. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool job for sure. I get to work from home, like you were saying. I'm one of the lucky ones.
Oh, you get to
So
work from
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, like I was saying, a lot of people that are on salary right now, they have some form of job security, and they're able to kind of make this transition a little bit more smoothly than others, the people that actually really need it the most. So what, in your opinion, are we missing that we're not seeing, from the information we're being given by the media, right? You get to see the numbers, you got raw data, and you have a lot of it. So what are we missing publicly that we need to be seeing?
So one thing that people don't understand is that how these models are actually being run are actually supposed to be in what's called a SIR model. So how they're looking at the population of the people that are infected, how many people that have recovered, so on and so forth. And what the media is definitely missing is they're not accounting the people that have gotten the virus and have been infected, say in January, right? So right now, I think it's saying that there's like 180,000 people in the United
Yes.
States or something like that.
118.
They're not looking at the people that have been infected and have been cured, essentially, right? They've actually cycled through it, right? So if you got sick on January 2nd, it's about an 11-day turnaround as per the World Health. On January 12th, your number should come off of that ticker, but it's not.
Okay.
So there is no curve. So when you look at all these charts and these graphs and they just keep on going up, like that's not accurate at all whatsoever.
So you're saying that the infection rate is less than what's being told?
Yeah, so a lot of my models, and I'm not saying that it's not a big deal, it's still a very big deal.
Okay.
There's still a lot of very sick people. So all the viewers that are watching don't think that it's not a big deal. It definitely
Okay.
is. But what I'm saying is that there's probably about 60% of all the numbers that you're seeing, you basically almost cut it in half, and that's the real number that I'm seeing about, right? And it's a give and take based on location, right? So if you're an older person, that 11-day average actually turns into about a 23-day
That makes
average.
sense.
So if you're in South Florida, if you're in, Arizona with these major sort of of these elderly people, that curve is going to be a little bit more steep because those people are sick for longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you know what's funny is that you're talking about January. I got sick earlier this year, and it was something that I had never felt in my entire life. And it felt like the flu, but it was something so much worse. And, I don't want to speculate or whatever, but if I had to say, I would say it was that. It was damn coronavirus, because I have no idea what else it was. I've had the flu before in my lifetime. I think I got 2 flu shots this season from the VA. I got one early, in maybe August, September. And then I think I had got another one maybe December or so. They told me to get another one. But yeah, I got sick, and it was something that I had never felt before. And it lingered for, like you said, 11 days kind of thing. It stayed with me. So I don't know. It's ironic that we're here now. So, okay. So what should we be doing? Even knowing what you know, what are you doing to protect yourself, and what are you telling other people to do to protect themselves?
So I haven't left my house in 3 weeks, and that's what I am recommending. Even though, I think a lot of these, major population areas have just gone under curfew and these major quarantines just recently, right? I've been taking this very seriously, for the last about month, right? So I'd say definitely stay inside, limit any and all contact, don't be touching surfaces, wash your hands, my guess is that I don't think it's going to last as long as what everyone's saying because of the
So
modeling,
like less
right?
than 2
Like
months is what you're saying?
I I would I would go ahead and say on the record that I would guess that this is going to be over within probably 6 weeks is what I would guess. And I'm not a sociologist, right? So I don't know how people are going to react,
Yeah.
right? As we see, us at the top of the actual bell curve and then coming on the way down, is that going to be reported? How are people going to react? I don't know, but a lot of my models are showing about 6 weeks, and that's on the short end, about 8 weeks on the long end, and that's sort of what I'm looking at right
So
now. I also
what are we looking at as far as like potential for this being seasonal, and what are the reinfection rates? Can you be reinfected?
That's actually a really good question.
Yeah.
So what a lot of really smart people are trying to figure out right now is you need to remember that it's called a novel virus for a reason, right? We don't
Never
know
seen
anything
it.
about
Yeah,
it.
never seen it before.
They are looking at COVID-2, which is the SARS virus, and they're looking at influenza, right? And they're looking at sort of looking at those stats. They're looking at something called typhoid fever because it's on the same sort of model. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I predict that this is going to wind up coming up, probably yearly,
Cyclical,
right?
yeah.
And yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I am like kind of what you were saying earlier. I am a little bit more worried about the economic impacts. Unfortunately, I say it's a bad problem to have, but I'm in that bucket of people that will not be getting a check, right? Because I'm above that, sort of threshold. And $2 trillion is a lot of money, right? I was just watching this I think it was like a Now This video where they were showing these big piles of rice with million, 100,000, a billion, and it's like huge, right? So it's kind of hard to wrap my head around $2 trillion. It's a lot of money for sure, and I hope that the people out there that need help are able to get that from their state government or federal government, or I haven't read the actual bill yet, so I don't know what's in that package, like what agencies are sort of getting
What?
billions of dollars or whatever. But I have a lot of friends that are struggling, that they were struggling way before this happened, and now they're really in a lot of trouble, and I try to help them out as much as I can because I'm fortunate.
Yeah.
Right? Like I make a lot of money, and I'm able to work from home, so yeah, I definitely feel bad for a lot of those people for sure.
That's the unfortunate. That's like the gift and a curse part of this whole thing. It's like it's exposing the cracks in our social safety nets. What was left of them, right? And so now we're able to kind of see in real time. Yes, the majority of Americans had no emergency money. They have no emergency fund. They have no way to take care of themselves in times of crises. And we're also realizing that businesses are living paycheck to paycheck as well. So it's not even just that employees are living paycheck to paycheck. Now we're realizing that employers have been doing that as well. I think of all the banks, all of the major banks that are, they have mortgages and stuff like that. With the exception of Bank of America, the majority of them said that they would be able to go up roughly 4 months with a moratorium on collecting those things, right? That they would give people opportunity to do that. Bank of America said they could only do 30 days. What does that tell you, right? And it's not that and it's not even that they don't want to. It's they can't because they would become insolvent, right?
Yeah, I definitely try to bank with private banks and non-publicly traded banks as much as I can. Unfortunately, that's kind of unavoidable at this point, but it's definitely sort of telling. But on the opposite end, right? Like I'm definitely a little bit more leaning towards I understand both sides, right? I understand why banks need these bailouts and these, airlines need the bailouts, right? There's like 15 million people that work for, the actual airline industry, and if they go under, then that's 15 million people that's,
So,
going to be out of the
so
job.
what do you think about the idea of nationalizing the airlines, especially given what they're asking for now?
So basically having one major entity, a federal or a state entity,
Or I mean,
in
it
charge
could.
of the
I mean, it could
airlines.
still be more
Is
than
that
one.
what
I
the
mean, you could
question is?
still have like the FAA, but it could. Yeah, you're good. Oh yeah, we're at in the. Oh yeah. It's so sorry. You
No
could
worries.
have the FAA still govern more than one airline. So let's say they keep the major ones that we have now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
but the idea is that they're coming to us asking for bailouts and all this stuff now because they didn't do the proper precautionary measures to ensure that they had the resources necessary when this happened, right? So
Sure.
first of all, when we bailed them out the first time, instead of taking all that money and leaving it liquid, keeping it as cash, they decided to buy back all their stocks, which inflated their stock price, which meant that the executives at the top qualified for whatever line item bonuses were written into their contracts. And so now a host of people that got free government money in the first place got bailed out, got saved, they got rich, and now they're coming back, leaving us with another bill so they can do it all over again. So I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
How do we break that cycle?
Yeah.
I'm listening to
Yeah.
you. 1 second.
And sure. And that's definitely a big problem, right? Like I'm not as a veteran, right? I use, the VA system, right? And I look at government ran systems like that. I also used to work for the federal government as a civilian. I worked as a scientist for the Federal Highway Administration as well as the United States Geological Survey. And I could definitely say that private industry is much more efficient and they're much more effective at doing things than the federal government is. Because there definitely are good federal employees for sure, but regardless of what happens, they know that they're getting a check, right? Like it doesn't matter if they're performing, it doesn't matter if they're not. Like they are guaranteed, right? So in the private industry, I've worked in the private industry now for this big company for about 2 years, and if you're not pulling your weight, man, like that's it.
Right.
Like you know what I mean?
Well, so that was one of the things that I think is like the downfall of the government is that how do I say this? A lot of times the best people, they'll go to the private entities because they're offering better benefits, like higher salary. Sometimes they have like more robust, like vacation packages and healthcare and
For
whatever
sure.
the case may be. There is a job security with the government, but I just think oftentimes it's like, for instance, in the airline industry, if the airline industry is nationalized, well, then everyone who works in airline, the best of the brightest, they're there. So what you're talking about, getting things done and having like more efficiency and stuff like that, it would inherently be already in that system. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that all the employees that are good in that sort of, job or whatever, you wouldn't anticipate them leaving is what you're
No, like
trying to
if I'm an
say.
aircraft mechanic and I'm the one of the highest paid in the nation, and so I decide to go work for Boeing because, right? Whereas I could, if it was all nationalized, maybe not the means of production, so that person may still work for Boeing building the aircraft, but maybe there's a job that has commensurate pay with commensurate benefits that maybe they just would rather work for the government as opposed to a for-profit corporation on the outside, right? So now that person has it's a better avenue, a better working environment, I would imagine, if everybody's in the same boat instead of competing between private and public sector. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I and sort of with my experience, being a veteran and working for the federal government, like I was good, right? Like there was basically no way. At the time I was I think a GS11. I had just made GS12, so that's pretty good money, right? And I was basically I basically couldn't be fired,
Yeah.
right? But the private industry, just the comp is so much better, right? It's literally like it's apples and oranges, right? It's
Yeah.
not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and dogs, right? That's how far off it is. And you know, in the private industry, if you don't perform, then you do get, you know, fired. But I'm not really worried about that because I know that I'm a top performer. I know how good I am, and kind of understand that value.
Right.
And I see a lot of people struggle with that when they're trying to leave the Air Force or the Army or whatever, is because it's a guaranteed check. And I know you took that leap, and it's a very scary thing to do. And I know you know what
Yeah.
I'm sort of talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of my buddies that are still in, I try to convince, hey man, like the grass is greener on the other side for a lot of people as long as you're willing to put
You
in
got
the
to put a
work,
lot of
right?
work,
I think
man.
that's what it's a lot of work for sure. Like no one's gonna
Yeah.
hand you anything, and
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like yeah, there's a lot of benefits, but I mean, you definitely have to work for them, and I think that's I don't know. I guess that's the overarching lesson for this entire thing as well, right? It's kind of like before I left the military, I had like a rainy day, not only just fun, but I had like a plan. Like I had an idea
Yeah.
of what I needed to do to sustain myself without these guaranteed benefits. And I think that like in the same fashion now during this whole pandemic, I think a lot of people need to like take a moment, sit back, and really look at, okay, what did I not prepare preemptively that is causing me stress now? And what can I do in the future to kind of like change the trajectory? Because this is going to happen again. Some form of disaster in your life is going to happen, whether a fire to your home, a medical bill for a loved one just puts you in a bankruptcy situation, car crash, like all kinds of stuff can just derail people. So, hopefully in the future, by having these discussions and by people just internally reflecting, they'll be able to kind of be on a better path. So anything else you have to add to the discussion? I'm going to transition out of here pretty soon. So
Sure. Yeah, no, I just want to say thanks for, inviting me on here, and, anytime you want, I'm happy to come back.
Yeah, for
So,
sure, man.
thanks.
I'll definitely have you back. I appreciate you coming in and dealing with all the difficulties we had earlier, but I appreciate you sticking through, man.
No worries.
All right,
Thanks a lot.
for your time. So we go ahead and kill that. All right. Yeah. So always good to see an old buddy of mine. Him and I were in the military together and actually deployed at one time together. And he's a pretty stand-up dude. And that's one of the good things about social media and the internet is the connectivity that we have now that we previously just didn't. So that's a pretty great thing to see. So let's go ahead and get None queued up on the line. Let me send him a message real quick. Let's see if you calling him. All right. Let's see if we can just pull him up. See if it calls in or not. Okay. I'll just have him. I'll send him a message. See if we can get him on the line. But in the meantime, so yeah, let's show. Do we have that AOC clip? So still talking about the stimulus, the Corona stimulus.
I represent one of the.
So again, the people were put into a really the progressive individuals in the Democratic Party were put in a really tough position by this bill. On one hand, you want to get aid to people that need it the most in the fastest way possible. On the other hand, the aid, because it's all part of one bill, you're forced to vote for certain things that you normally don't politically align with, such as all the resources that were available to corporations that were not available to regular citizens. Not having oversight be mandated as part of lending out this money, right? They're having to vote yes for that because, voting no and standing up for the American people is going to make you look bad because everyone's going to paint you as a person who's holding up all the aid. So let's go ahead and play this AOC clip, and then we'll see if we can get Tristan on the line and get his reaction.
I represent one of the hardest hit communities in the hardest hit city in this country, Queens, New York. 13 dead in a night in Elmhurst Hospital alone. Our community's reality is this country's future if we don't do anything. Hospital workers do not have protective equipment. We don't have the necessary ventilators. But we have to go into this vote eyes wide open. What did the Senate majority fight for? In American history. Shameful. The greed of that fight is wrong for crumbs, for our families. And the option that we have is to either let them suffer with nothing or to allow this greed and billions of dollars, which will be leveraged into trillions of dollars, to contribute to the largest income inequality gap in our future. There should be shame about what was fought for in this bill and the choices that we have to make.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
All right. So as you can
Subscribe
see,
by
pretty
clicking on that
passionate.
button down here.
Like I said, they were put into a pretty bad position having to vote for certain things that they normally would not have. So, yeah, go transition over.
Having to vote yes.
All right, Nunn, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
My guy, how you feeling?
Good, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm good, man. Yeah, thanks for coming through. So tell us, how you feeling during this pandemic time?
Oh, can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I had the same conversation with somebody, and it doesn't really feel any different than, and I know a lot of Americans cannot relate, but I think you can as well as Jeff. It almost feels like being deployed almost.
Like on a deployment.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You go to the shop at, and they don't have your certain, I don't know, yeah, on the shelf, and you're frustrated, and then you're just like, well, it is what it is, and then you just adapt to it. But I got a feeling right now that a lot of people they're having trouble adapting to this norm that we're probably going to be faced with probably for the next I don't know, 2 months maybe.
Yeah. So I don't know if you caught what I did with Jeff right now, but
yeah,
he's saying 6 weeks, and honestly, that's the optimistic approach. I had like I'm thinking 8 weeks. I'm thinking 2 months to like come down. Like
I was thinking Easter.
Oh, you and Trump, you got the same timeline.
The same optimistic timeline as my president. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't introduce you at all or anything. So go ahead and take a minute, introduce yourself to everyone who you are, why you're important at all.
No worries. Appreciate it, man. Name is Tristan Nunn. I'm actually Air Force veteran, security forces like Jeff and Mr. Derek here. 10 years active duty service, 5 years in the reserves now. And I'm currently unemployed, but this happened way before Corona. Corona and the other 3 million Americans joined me. And other than that, I work. I'm actually currently stationed in San Antonio, and I nickel and dime through that. So, but just finished my bachelor's through AMU, American Public University. So,
my guy,
just continued the educational path. That was in hotel and restaurant management. Love to cook, love everything about that. Culinary school graduate here in Houston. So, it's just this has been a very not career building. I would say a character building season. And I've been doing it since probably I separated active duty. So, everybody else, I feel your pain. Trust me, you're not alone. Shout out to all the unemployed veterans out there right now, but you'll get through it, man. If you can take 6 to 8 weeks of a stranger yelling at you through basic training, I think you can get through a lot of other stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
So have you filed for unemployment or no?
I did not, but my wife works at the Texas Workforce Commission, and they have lines outside the door, and they're not even open. So, and she's even gave me some backdoor numbers too, to call the places in Austin and around the state. And man, it's just a busy signal. Can't get through.
unemployment chart? I'm listening to you. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't get through. So, I mean, luckily, and this is one thing that I'm glad you brought up, you and Jeff, it's having that, that little goose egg. I mean, we've been saving for a house anyway, and we're our living situation. We're blessed to have a certain situation that we're dealing with right now, but a lot of people just do not have that, and they're unable to get by right now. And I was listening to you earlier, and that 1,200, depending if you have kids or not, I thought that 1,200 was going to be every month for everybody until everything gets restarted.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that Bernie Sanders was fighting for. Was he wanted $2,000 a month for at least 4 months, right?
Okay.
And that seems like a lot more of a feasible solution as far as like it being effective. Because to be honest with you, I think you give someone $1,200 a month and then like $500 for each kid, but that's not going to do much for like 4 months worth of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then depending on your lifestyle too. Now, I've had to make many adjustments in my lifestyle, but imagine someone that has a more luxurious lifestyle and they don't even qualify. And let's say they don't have anything in savings, or if they do have savings, it's not enough, so
that was one of the things that was one of the things that I was talking to Jeff about too, is like, ideally this whole situation will help people realize how important money management is. Like, like I'm all for, one of my mantras is I can't take this with me when I die.
Exactly.
So I'm all about, spending it to enjoy your life and all that stuff. But you also have to plan for, the uneventful event that you live to 85 years old, right? Like you gotta have like something put away. So hold on one second, Tristan. You're not gonna be able to see this, but I wanted to show everyone. Let's look at a chart of the unemployment rate as it stands now. So we went from what is that? Maybe 250,000, something like that, maybe less, to 3.3 million just within 2 weeks. So yeah, we go back to none. So yeah, so I can definitely understand your wife saying that there's an astronomical number of people outside waiting for some assistance. So
and you brought up another thing dealing with the the big corporations. It's gonna happen, like you said. It's gonna happen if something else happens where it's a catastrophe and we're in the same situation. You gotta have, and it's to each his own. Everybody has their opinion, but you have to be able to support those large organizations that employ millions of workers, like those airline industries and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and the hypothetical was, well, do we let the airlines fail?
Yeah, but why would you? Because they support so many,
right?
All these jobs.
And that's the problem is, we don't want to hurt the workers by holding the executives accountable, right? So like holding the executives accountable would be letting that organization fail, which would reflect upon your poor leadership. But that only hurts a few of y'all. I'm sorry. That not only hurts a few of y'all, it really, really hurts everyone else who's losing their job now. But
everybody underneath.
How do we fix that problem without perpetuating its behavior, right? Like, how do I save you but also slap you at the same time?
It's almost like a revolving door. And the president said that he doesn't want to, give the buybacks, but still, they're still going to be able to find loopholes in the systems. And like you said, $2 trillion is a lot of money.
Buybacks, but I think the buyback stipulation was only for 12 months.
Yeah.
It's not even for the entirety.
Exactly. And I was on Reddit earlier today, and then they were talking about how everything was broken down into all of the different systems, and to include the checks and everything like that. But $2 trillion but what happens if it's not enough? I think, people are saying that, and we can be optimistic, and let's say we can get all the way to sundress season. We can get to summer and everybody's ready. And then that's a good time. But what happens if it lasts all the way until December? Because you have to realize there's no vaccine right now, and I think people are overlooking that, because if they open everything back up, they being, the government, the governors, and they're like, hey, everything's safe. Well, it's really not. Then you're just setting yourself up. And I was telling someone earlier today, I think Bill Gates said it the best. It's like, how do you get people to go back to the bars, go back to the restaurants?
Well, it's not gonna be hard to get us to go back to the bar.
I know, right? And how do you want people to buy houses and then ignore the bodies that are piling up in the corner over
that's
there?
The thing is, I mean, some hospitals are now having refrigerated trucks.
Yeah.
Bodies.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I was gonna ask you, when's the last time you left the house?
Oh, today actually. I was just about to bring it up. I went to the grocery store. It was a little eerie. It wasn't as packed, obviously, because people shop throughout the week now because people are home. But you have to wait for your basket right outside the front door. People look at each other and they're just like, there's this look on their face like, please don't say anything to me. I think the most interesting thing was the young lady that was checking me out. She had to be either in high school or graduated high school. I can look and see the fear on her face because, like, let's say she works 6 hours at the cash register, right? She's coming into more contact with people for those 6 hours, straight. And it's just, people are scared because they're inconvenienced. They're being inconvenienced. And then right now, like I said, there's no cure or vaccine for it. So yeah, people are scared. Yeah.
I've also talked about there's like kind of a lack of guidance, right? So there's and it's crazy right now, right? Because it should be coming from the top, right? It should be coming from the president, right? From the president on down, everyone else falls suit. This is how the nation's going to deal with this. But because of the inaction at the top and the deflecting of the responsibility and taking the blame, so that we can now fix it, we have like 7 different people on TV every day. Or like, we have like De Blasio, Governor Cuomo, you got Trump, you got Mike Pence, like you have Bernie Sanders, like you just have all these people who are like, this is how we're gonna fix it, and it's like, who do I listen to? Which one of you guys is in charge? Like, who's running this show right now?
So I was on orders, for almost a month, and I would, it's the new religion, right? Watching CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, whoever. And I was talking to my mentor earlier while I was on orders. Shout out Chris Akala, and he was just saying how, you don't, as a president, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You know what I mean? He's already the most powerful person, right? So if you have all these people behind you, Dr. Fauci, the other doctor, the Surgeon General, all you have to do as a president is just encourage people and build up their confidence, because that's, like you said, they need. Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, these guys are, it's their field. I'm not a disease specialist at all. This is why I appointed these people. So, let them, they're going to inform you. I'm just here to build you up, create a foundation of strength, give you a little bit of guidance of what you need to do. And then, this is the way it needs to be, instead of, and it's funny to me, it's almost like, just shooting from the hip, hey, I thought of this. But yeah, I would say he's doing the best job he can of what he's got, quote unquote, the invisible enemy. And, nobody's ever had to face what he's had to face in I would say our generation. So.
Yeah, I think what people talk about the Spanish flu, that was 1917 or something like that.
Yeah.
obviously a different time, and at that time they really didn't know that it was a virus that was killing people. They just knew people were getting sick.
Exactly.
But either way, I mean, I think there is some validity to the argument that this could have been handled a lot differently from the beginning. There were warning signs. There were already people in the administration who already knew that this was coming. I mean, Bill Gates has been talking about this for quite some time. I mean, I think this is just kind of like a really stark reminder that, you know, when you're not paying attention, that really bad things can happen, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be a wake up call. What I'm really interested in is how it's going to look at the end of the year. You know, how as Americans, and not only Americans themselves, but you know, where do we go from here? And then globally too, you know, because everything has to restart back up. You know, tourism is the number one.
San Antonio.
You know, tourism itself globally is the number one price tag. You know, I feel bad for the cruise liners. You know, people are going to want to travel again, but how do you reassure people that, you know, everything's going to be okay? And nobody can do that right now. So,
yeah, well, and speaking of that, you know, the stock market took a really big nosedive. The crypto market took a really big nosedive. Everything took a nosedive. And I just want to highlight that the only reason why the stock market came back up is because they announced that they reached a deal and that economic stimulus was coming for the corporations. Now, let's Bitcoin dived. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Because as much as Bitcoin tanked, can you zoom in on that on like maybe the 1 month? See on the top left where it says 1 month, where it says Bitcoin charts? That's okay. It's from her. Don't worry about her. Right here, Doug. Click that. Sorry. All right. Hold on. Yes. I'm on Zoom. All right. So there you go. So as you can see, we're at 6,400. We're about 6,400. So Bitcoin. So that was the Bitcoin market was able to sustain itself without the help of any outside injection, of any news about bailouts or anything like that. So I think, right, going forward, we can switch off from this. Going forward, I think when you're talking about at the end of the year, how do we rebuild? When we go, you know, we talk about, well, how do we rebuild? I think that, you know, people are going to start looking for alternate forms of storing their wealth and the value that they've created for themselves. I think traditionally, you know, we looked towards banks to handle our money and basically be the custodians of our wealth. And I think once again, it's going to get to a point where, you know, things like Bitcoin, somewhere to store your money. I think people are going to start buying gold again and kind of get back to trusting that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's going to look like for the housing market. Dude, it's funny because, you know, Redfin?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Like they are like a mortgage app, and, you know, you can check it. They literally, like, I want to say 2 weeks ago, were sending me emails to sell my house. Like, how tone deaf are you?
They know something, obviously, you know, that you, I'm not saying that you don't know it, but, you know, they realize that, you know, and I've been to your house, they realize that area within 6 to 8 months, I mean, let's give it a year, it's going to be booming again. You know, people are going to be like, okay, let's get back on track. This is over. You know, and that's really interesting that you're already receiving those.
They're already like, and a couple other people who are in the real estate industry, I was getting like, you know, emails like, hey, you know, we're here for you. Do you have any questions? You know, because a lot of people's home values have gone down, right? And then what's happening right now is a lot of people are having to cash in all of their assets in their nest egg so that they can just make it over the next few months. So there's a lot of panic for a lot of people. There's a lot of panic, man. Dude, we updated. You don't even know what's happening right now. We updated the broadcasting software, and it's just been glitchy all over the place today, man. Anyways, you were big, you
Yeah.
were small, now you're
Yeah.
small again. You're good.
Oh, sorry.
So, anyways, all right. Well, None, I appreciate you calling in. Do you have anything else to add to the discussion? Anything on your mind? Anything you want to tell the American people?
It will. It will pass. That's all I can say. It'll pass. Learn a lesson. Don't always expect the federal, and I mean like and this is just in my opinion, don't always expect the federal government to always be there at a moment's notice, because you have to take care of yourself. Me, I got little kids I got to look after, so you have to be prepared for everything. So yeah, but hey,
Words
man.
of wisdom.
Yes, sir. Hey, one thing though, is good hearing from you. I had a blast in Chicago last year.
Yeah.
Chicago is a great city. Thanks for the tour and everything like that.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
Yeah, and thank you for your service, man, in this great
Thank you for
nation.
your service, sir. We'll chat again. I'll definitely have you back on. Yeah, always good to talk to you, man. I love you to death, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Peace out, dude. Yeah.
All right.
All right. So, yeah. Always good. Again, another military buddy of mine. It was really good to have Tristan on, hear what he has to say. So, yeah, all around, everyone's kind of got kind of the same vibe, right? Eerie. Everything's eerie. All feels a little weird. But that we're all going to make it through this. And as long as we lean on each other when we need it the most, we'll be all right. And we're going to be fine. So I think that's pretty much all I had for today. We got stuck on coronavirus quite a bit, but for obvious reasons, that's the thing we need to talk about the most. Hopefully everyone does what they need to do to get the stimulus check for them. Like they said, if you are in the if you're in the IRS system already as having an electronic way to get paid, like if you've already received your deposit electronically for your tax refund, you should be receiving your check within the next few weeks electronically. If you're not, they're supposed to just mail you a check. So hopefully that comes sooner than later and that your family's holding together during this tough time. Again, I wanted to send a special shout out to all the healthcare workers out there. You all are doing probably the most important things right now. And I don't think there's anything that we can do that can ever repay you for what you're doing. But I hope that you all stay safe. I know some of you are being afflicted by illness. And unfortunately, that's occupational hazard that can often not be avoided. So as best as possible, take care of yourself. You're definitely in our thoughts. Hector, you got anything else to add to the discussion? Hector's a no. He's just ready to be done today. We had a lot of technical difficulties. Appreciate you all tuning in. Please subscribe if you haven't. The videos stay up. I'm going to start putting clips up as well throughout the week. So if you don't, watch the live stream in its entirety, that's fine. There'll be clips that go up during the week. We're going to do this every Saturday. Try to do it around 3 o'clock to about 5 o'clock. That'll be Central Standard Time in the United States. So, yeah, want to say thank you for everyone tuning in. If I know you, you know I love you. And if I don't, know that I love you too. And we'll see you again next time. So, thanks for tuning in.